This is Tundra Pink. Tundra Pink is a super granulating color by Schmincke, and it contains PB29 and PR233. Let's take a look at what it looks like, and today I'm going to show you how you can mix it. Let's see that in a nice wet wash. I will say that the Schmincke version of this color, and I purchased it in half pans, not in tubes. It re-wets very easily. Some PR233s can be difficult to re-wet. I'm going to let that dry so that you can see what happens with this color. But I'm going to also go ahead and start to mix this and show you how you can mix this color yourself. This is actually a pretty easy one to mix. So that is Schmincke's version. And already we can start to see things happening here when we do a really wet wash. Just going wet on dry paper, you're going to get a much different result. So if you want to take advantage of colors that granulate, you really want to put them in a wet wash. It gives them the ability to float around and kind of separate and do their thing. So this color is, it's listed as PB29 and then PR233. So PB29 is ultramarine blue, but I don't see how this could have more ultramarine blue than PR233. But we're going to see how we can mix it. I'm going to start with my Daniel Smith colors here, and this is my PR233, and I went ahead and pre-wet my pans because I know if you don't allow Daniel Smith's PR233, which you would know as Potter's Pink, to wake up slowly on its own, it's a little grumpy. It doesn't want to activate. And let's take some of the, I'm just going a little conservatively with the PB29 at first because I don't want to put too much. I think we could go the wrong direction really fast. Now I'm looking at my pan here to try to match this color. And looking at it in this little dish, that looks a bit more purple than when I first put it down from their pan. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit more of my Potter's Pink. All right. So Tundra Pink. Let's go ahead and do a wet and wet wash right here, just so we have one on the same page to look at. Take some of our mix. Look at that, we are pretty close. I think we are pretty close. We'll let that set and see how it starts to separate. But let's take a look at our two pigments on their own. Okay, so to start, we have our Potter's Pink, which is PR233, which is a beautiful granulating red pigment that looks like a pinkish brown. It granulates beautifully. And then of course PB29. And on my palette right now I have Daniel Smith's French Ultramarine versus Ultramarine. And I do have it written on my Schmincke that PB29 came first as it having more of that pigment versus the PR233, but I just don't see that. And then of course, I'm going to put our mix here. And once again, I'll swatch Schmincke's version right here. It really looks more of like a muted purple when you put it down. But in a nice wet wash, really going to see it do its thing. And then let's put ours right next door. Mix those back together. They were separating in the dish. See, we get that same purplish, muted purple look when we put it on, when we first put the color down. And again, we'll let that kind of do its thing. And if I wanted to put it wet on dry, just so you can see, it might leach into each other right there. Let's do the same. Okay. So with wet on dry, you're going to get less separation and less of the granulation. But when we do it wet and wet, you can see here, they definitely granulate and there's a little bit of color separation. And let me show you. And this is not completely dry yet. But here's Schmincke's and here's our mix. This is one that's very easy to duplicate. It is Potter's Pink PR233 and Ultramarine Blue PB29. Again, these are not completely dry. I'll let them dry and give you another look and see what you think. We check out how that looks in the palette. Look at how it separates. I just love when you create mixes. Like, pay attention to the magic that happens on your palette. Sometimes that can be artwork all on its own. These are pretty much dry now. And can I just say, I love the shift in color of the Potter's Pink from here to here. Adding that ultramarine blue just makes such a beautiful, more pink version from here to here. It's, you know, it's a cooler pink, and I think it's beautiful. I definitely think that we were able to duplicate that. Maybe just a tiny bit extra ultramarine blue on my part, which again leads me to believe that there's actually more of the PBR 233 than the PB 29. But if you look at those two, I think we got pretty darn close. With the Schmincke, when it's a wet and wet wash, you're going to see a little bit of the ultramarine kind of settling and showing through that mixture. You can see just a little bit more, especially around the edges here on my mix. But as far as wet on dry, I think they came really close. Let's look at this one. And you can see here, so wet on dry with the Schmincke, you still have that granulation, but it's not as pronounced as wet and wet. And so there's the difference. So if you're someone who doesn't like a lot of granulation, once again, if you do that wet on dry, you're going to control it a little bit more. But wet and wet, how gorgeous is that? And then my mix is right there at the bottom. Again, we see a little extra of the ultramarine blue around the edges, and it could be that this wash was just slightly wetter than this one, so it allowed them to kind of move and separate a bit more. It could also be because we're mixing it ourselves versus it being mixed by a manufacturer. However, you can definitely mix this one. This is going to be an easy one for you to duplicate. And what do you think? Is this a color that you would use? Is this one that you're excited to learn how to create for yourself? I think this is definitely one of those colors where sometimes you have to really know which version of the pigment, because like PR 101, there's so many different hues that PR 101 can be found. And you have to know which version Schmincke's using to create that super granulating mix when you go into that. There are a few pigments like that they use in their overall super granulating line. But when it comes to Tundra Pink, most of the Potter's Pinks are pretty similar. And as long as you have a Potter's Pink that looks pretty similar to Schmincke's version of Potter's Pink, think you're going to be able to nail this one, because PP29 ultramarine blue, that looks really close regardless of what manufacturer is making it. Some will granulate more heavily than others, but again, I'm using the French ultramarine version of PB29 by Daniel Smith versus the regular ultramarine, and I think that nailed it perfectly. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? Are you going to mix this one? Are you excited to be able to do this now? Let me know. I hope you're enjoying the Monday mixes. I can't wait to share with you another one next week. I'm going to pop a video up right here that you might like to watch next. And until next time, my friends, keep mixing, keep creating, and I'll see you in a video real soon. Bye.